Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel General Hospital today. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The muted light of a late September dawn crept across the Port Charles skyline, casting long, distorted shadows that reached like skeletal fingers over the city. It was a Monday, the start of a week that promised not routine but reckoning. The air itself felt charged, thick with the residue of shattered secrets and the ominous quiet that precedes a storm. Inside the sprawling, silent penthouse atop the Metro Court Hotel, the grandeur felt more like a gilded cage. The only sounds were the faint, rhythmic hum of the climate control and the soft rustle of silk as Ava Jerome, perched on the edge of a divan, stared into a crystal tumbler of amber liquid as if it were a scrying pool. Her usually impeccable composure was fractured. A fine tremor ran through her hand, causing the ice cubes to clink a nervous, solitary tattoo. The events of the previous days, the confrontation, the confession, the chilling phone call, played on a relentless loop in her mind. Nicholas Cassadine was no longer a ghost. He was a tangible threat, a man resurrected from the depths of the harbor and her own guilty conscience, and his return threatened to unravel the fragile life she had meticulously woven for herself and her daughter. A floor below, in a suite that smelled of antiseptic and anxiety, Carly Spencer paced. Her energy was a stark contrast to Ava's stillness, a caged tiger wearing a path in the plush carpet. The door opened and Drew Finnerty entered, his face a mask of weary concern. He carried a paper bag containing coffee and pastries, the mundane items looking absurdly out of place. Anything? Carly's question was sharp, laced with a desperation she could no longer conceal. Drew shook his head, setting the bag down on a small table. Jason's gone to ground. No one's seen him. Not at the garage, not at the old penthouse. It's like he vanished after he left the hospital. He's hurt, Drew. He was shot. He shouldn't be out there alone. Carly's voice cracked. The image of Jason Morgan, pale and bleeding but stubbornly refusing proper medical care, was burned into her memory. His single-minded focus on protecting her and their son, Jocelyn's brother, had overridden every instinct for self-preservation. Pikeman, they won't stop. They think he knows where the data chip is. He's the most resourceful man I know, Carly. If anyone can disappear in plain sight, it's Jason. Drew's attempt at reassurance fell flat. He knew the stakes as well as she did. The shadowy organization known as Pikeman, whose encrypted data Jason had allegedly stolen, had proven they had long reach and no qualms about collateral damage. The shooting at the Metro Court had been a message, one written in gunfire. Carly stopped pacing and faced him, her eyes blazing with a familiar, defiant fire. We can't just wait. We have to draw them out. We have to use what we have. Drew's expression turned grim. The bait? Carly, that's a suicide mission. We don't even know what's on that chip. Jason was clear, he doesn't have it. He doesn't even remember taking it. But they don't know that, she insisted. We let it slip through the right channels that we have it. That we're willing to negotiate. We control the meeting point. We set the trap. And what if they call our bluff? What if they just send another sniper? Drew argued, his voice low and urgent. We're not dealing with Sonny's kind of organized crime here. This is different. This is corporate paramilitary. They don't play by the same rules. The mention of Sonny Corinthos hung unspoken in the air between them. Sonny, who was navigating his own labyrinth of betrayal and power struggles, was a variable they couldn't afford to rely on, not with his empire under siege from within. Carly's jaw tightened. Then we make new rules. Across town in the sterile, quiet confines of General Hospital, another kind of vigil was being kept. Elizabeth Weber sat by the bedside of her son, Jake Spencer, who was sleeping fitfully, his small form dwarfed by the hospital bed. The psychological trauma of his recent ordeal, the manipulation at the hands of a man he'd trusted, was proving far more difficult to treat than any physical injury. A soft knock preceded the entrance of Dr. Hamilton Finn, his kind eyes filled with a professional empathy that Elizabeth had come to rely on. How is he? Finn asked, his voice barely a whisper. Nightmares, Elizabeth replied, her own voice thick with exhaustion. He woke up twice screaming about dark water and lies. She brushed a strand of hair from Jake's forehead, her heart aching. The stability she had fought so hard to build for her sons was crumbling, and the foundation of that instability was, as it so often was, tied to the Cassidines. Finn nodded. It's going to take time, Liz. We're dealing with deep-seated trust issues. But he's resilient and he has you. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I saw the report from the lab. The tox screen on the sample you brought in from Windmere. Elizabeth looked up, a flicker of fear in her eyes. And it's confirmed. The tea was laced with a low-grade cumulative neurotoxin. Very rare, very old world. The kind of thing that would cause confusion, memory loss, paranoia over time. Finn's expression was grave. Someone has been slowly poisoning Violet's nanny, and from the levels, it started not long after she arrived at Windmere. The confirmation was a cold fist closing around Elizabeth's heart. It wasn't just psychological manipulation. It was a deliberate physical assault. And all evidence pointed to the mistress of Windmere, Esme Prince. But Esme was a prisoner of her own amnesia. A vulnerable young woman who seemed more victim than villain. The mystery deepened and the shadow of Windmere, that brooding castle on the cliff, grew longer and darker. The castle in question was anything but quiet. In the main drawing room, a fire crackled in the great hearth, but it did little to dispel the chill. Victor Cassidine stood before it, his hands clasped behind his back, the very picture of patrician calm. But his eyes, cold and calculating, betrayed the turmoil beneath the surface. He was addressing his nephew, Valentine Cassidine, and Laura Collins, the mayor of Port Charles and a woman who had spent a lifetime battling his family. The situation is contained, Victor stated, his voice a low, resonant rumble. The unfortunate incident with the young Spencer boy was a regrettable misunderstanding. Esme's condition makes her susceptible to suggestion. She is being cared for. Cared for or silenced? Laura's tone was icy. She had come to Windmere demanding answers about Jake, and she was not leaving without them. We have evidence, Victor. Evidence of poisoning. This goes far beyond suggestion. Valentine, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. Uncle, perhaps it is time for transparency. The family's reputation. The family's reputation is built on resilience, Valentine. Victor interrupted, his gaze sharpening. On doing what is necessary to protect our legacy. Esme is part of that legacy now, whether we like it or not. Her child, my great-nephew, is the future. We must protect him from the chaos that follows his mother. Laura took a step forward. I am not leaving here without seeing Esme. And I am taking her to General Hospital for a full independent medical evaluation. If you refuse, Victor, I will return with a court order and the Port Charles PD. Your immunity as a diplomat only stretches so far. A tense silence filled the room, broken only by the pop and crackle of the fire. Victor's smile was thin and devoid of warmth. So be it, Laura. You may see her. But I warn you, what you discover may be more than you bargained for. The past has a way of resurfacing when least expected. Isn't that right? His eyes flickered towards the grand portrait of Helena Cassidine that hung over the mantel, a subtle reminder that the sins of the mother were often visited upon the children, and the children's children. The morning light had fully taken hold of the city by the time Sam McCall found her way to the doorstep of a small, nondescript safe house on the outskirts of town. She'd used every resource, called in every favor from her days as a private investigator, to find this place. She knocked twice, then 3 times, a coded signal. After a long moment, the door opened a crack and Jason Morgan peered out, his face pale and drawn, his eyes shadowed with pain and exhaustion. He quickly pulled her inside, locking the door behind her. Sam, you shouldn't have come, he said, his voice gruff. He leaned against the wall, a clear attempt to hide the weakness in his leg where the bullet had grazed him. And you shouldn't be playing hero with a bullet hole in you, Sam shot back, her concern manifesting as anger. She dropped her bag on a rickety table, pulling out medical supplies. Sit. Let me look at it. Reluctantly, Jason complied, lowering himself onto a worn-out sofa. As Sam carefully peeled back the bloodied bandage, she spoke softly. Carly is worried sick. Drew is trying to hold her together. Pikeman is everywhere, Jason. They're watching the hospital, the Metro Court, Sonny's places. They're not giving up. I know, Jason grunted, wincing as she cleaned the wound. That's why I can't go back. As long as they think I have that chip, everyone around me is a target. You included, Sam. You shouldn't be here. Where else would I be? She asked, meeting his gaze. Their history was a long and complicated tapestry of love, loss, and unwavering loyalty. We're a team. We always have been. You protect everyone else, but who protects you? I don't need protecting, he stated, a familiar stubbornness setting his jaw. Everyone needs protecting sometimes, Jason, Sam replied, her voice firm. Even you. Now what's the plan? Because hiding in a safe house until they eventually find you isn't a plan. It's a slow surrender. Jason was silent for a moment, his mind working, analyzing the chessboard of threats and allies. The plan, he said finally, is to find the chip. I don't remember taking it, but if I did, I hid it somewhere for a reason. I need to retrace my steps from that night. The last thing I remember clearly is meeting with the informant at the docks. After that, it's fragments. Flashes of light, the sound of a boat horn, the smell of gasoline. Sam finished rebandaging the wound. Then that's where we start. The docks. But we do it smart. We don't go in blind. She pulled out her phone. I know a guy. Used to work the shipping manifests. If there was any unusual activity that night, he'll know. As Sam made the call, Jason closed his eyes, trying to push past the fog in his mind. The answer was there, lurking just out of reach. The key to stopping pikemen, to protecting his family, was hidden in a memory he couldn't access. And time was running out. Back at the Metro Court, the day's tensions were beginning to boil over. Nina Reeves had arrived at the hotel, seeking out her daughter Wiley's mother, in a desperate attempt to bridge the chasm that had opened between them. She found Willow Tate in the hotel's conservatory, sitting alone, staring out at the garden with a hollow expression. Willow. Nina's voice was tentative. Can we talk? Willow turned, her eyes red-rimmed. What is there to talk about, Nina? You lied to me. For months. You knew I was your daughter, and you said nothing. You let me believe. Her voice trailed off, thick with emotion. I was scared. Nina pleaded, moving closer. I was scared of losing you. I thought if I told you the truth after everything with Michael, after the way I'd behaved, you would hate me. I thought I was protecting what little relationship we had. You weren't protecting me, you were protecting yourself, Willow countered, her voice trembling but clear. You made a choice for me about my own life, my own history. Do you have any idea what that feels like? To have your entire identity manipulated. The accusation hung in the air, a painful echo of the same charges leveled against Nina by Michael Corinthos, Willow's husband. Michael, who had taken his mother Carly's side in the bitter feud, had forbidden Nina from seeing Wiley, further fracturing the already broken family. I know I was wrong, Nina whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I know that now. But my love for you is real, Willow. It has always been real, even when I didn't know who you were. Please don't shut me out. Don't let Michael decide this for us. Willow looked away, a fresh wave of pain washing over her. She was trapped between her husband's justified anger and a deep primal longing for the mother she had never known. The stress of the situation was taking a visible toll on her, a fact that did not go unnoticed by Nina, whose maternal instincts were screaming in alarm. I need time, Nina, Willow said finally, her voice barely audible. I need to think. I can't do this right now. She stood and walked away, leaving Nina alone in the conservatory, her heart breaking. The confrontation at Windmere reached its climax as Laura, accompanied by a stern-faced Port Charles police detective, was led to the east wing of the castle. The atmosphere grew colder, the air stale. They stopped before a heavy oak door, which Victor unlocked with an ornate key. The room inside was lavishly furnished but felt like a beautifully appointed prison. Esme Prince sat in a window seat, staring out at the churning sea below. She turned as they entered, and Laura was struck by the profound emptiness in her eyes. The clever, manipulative young woman she had known was gone, replaced by a fragile, lost soul. Esme, Laura said gently. I'm Laura Collins. We're here to help you. Would you be willing to come with us to the hospital for a checkup? Esme's brow furrowed in confusion. She looked from Laura to Victor, a flicker of fear crossing her face. I don't understand. Have I done something wrong? I can't remember. I try to remember, but it's all fog. She clutched a small leather-bound book to her chest, a journal. Victor stepped forward. You see, Laura? She is in no condition to be interrogated. She needs rest and quiet. But Laura's attention was fixed on the journal. Esme, is that your diary? Would it be okay if I looked at it? It might help us understand what's been happening. A strange look passed over Esme's face. A glimmer of something sharp and knowing that was there and gone in an instant. It's just my thoughts. They're all mixed up. She hesitated, then slowly held out the book. Maybe you can make sense of them. As Laura took the journal, she felt the weight of it, and the weight of the secrets it might contain. This small book could be the key to unlocking the mystery of Jake's trauma, the poisoning, and the true nature of the threat within Windmere's walls. But as her fingers touched the worn leather, she couldn't shake the feeling that Victor had allowed this to happen, that he was still several moves ahead in a game only he understood. The afternoon sun was beginning to wane, casting long golden beams through the dusty windows of the safe house. Sam's contact had come through. There was a shipment that night, she told Jason, reading from a text message. A private yacht, the Acheron, registered to a shell corporation. It docked and left within a 2-hour window. The timing matches your last known location. The Acheron, Jason repeated, the name stirring something vague and unsettling in the recesses of his memory. Can we find out where it went? Working on it, Sam said. But get this, the Shell Corporation traces back to a holding company with ties to, wait for it, Cassadine Industries. Jason's head snapped up. Cassadine? What would Pikeman have to do with Victor Cassadine? Or is this a completely different problem? Sam mused. 2 separate enemies converging on the same night? That can't be a coincidence. Before Jason could respond, his burner phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number. He opened it and his blood ran cold. It was a photograph taken from a long lens. It showed Jocelyn and her boyfriend, Dex Heller, walking across the PCU campus, laughing, completely unaware. The message below was simple. The data. Or the girl. You have 24 hours. The threat was no longer vague. It had a face. It had a target. The walls were closing in and the safe house was no longer safe. Jason stood up, his injury forgotten, his entire being focused on a single primal objective: protection. We're out of time, he said to Sam, his voice low and deadly serious. The plan has changed. We're not going to the docks. He grabbed his jacket. I'm turning myself into Pikeman. Sam stared at him in horror. Jason, no. That's exactly what they want. They'll kill you. Maybe, he conceded, his eyes meeting hers, filled with a resolve that was absolute. But it will draw their focus away from Jocelyn, away from Carly, away from you. It will buy you time to find the real Chip. It's the only move I have left. As Jason Morgan prepared to walk into the lion's den, Sonny Corinthos was facing a betrayal of a more intimate nature. He stood in the back room of his restaurant, Ava's voice echoing in his mind from their earlier, frantic phone call. Her warning had been cryptic but clear. The enemy is not who you think, Sonny. It's someone much, much closer. His eyes fell on a security monitor showing the main bar area. There, sharing a quiet drink, were his trusted consigliere, Sean Butler, and his wife, Carly's best friend, Olivia Quartermain. Their body language was easy, familiar. Too familiar. A cold suspicion, one he had refused to entertain for weeks, began to crystallize into a terrifying certainty. The leaks in his organization, the misplaced shipments, the ambushes, they required an insider. Someone with access to his every move. He picked up a glass and threw it against the wall, the shattering sound of violent release of the fury building inside him. The war for Port Charles was no longer just against external foes like Pikeman or the Cassadines. It was a civil war, and the first shot had been fired from within his own ranks. At the same time, in the depths of General Hospital, Elizabeth Weber finally found a moment of quiet. She pulled out her own phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. It rang several times before a weary voice answered. Liz. Nicholas, she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions his name evoked. It's time. We need to talk. Face to face. The stakes are too high now. For Jake. For Spencer. For all of us. The line was silent for so long she thought he'd hung up. Then he spoke, his voice a ghost from her past, filled with regret and a newfound determination. Where? As the clock ticked down on Monday, September 29, 2025, the citizens of Port Charles found themselves at a series of devastating crossroads. Alliances were fracturing, secrets were bursting into the open, and the choices made in the coming hours would irrevocably alter the landscape of their lives. Jason was walking into a trap to save his family, Sonny was confronting a viper in his bosom, Laura was holding a journal that could expose a great darkness, and Elizabeth was reaching out to a man presumed dead. The day was not yet over, and the night promised to be longer and more dangerous than any they had ever known. The quiet of the dawn was a distant memory, replaced by the rising storm of a full new update, hurtling them all toward an uncertain and perilous future.